Okay, Tov. Today's daf yomi is dedicated for Shmira for Am Yisrael Tzala, for the Shvuyim Yeshua, for the Chayalim. Daf yomi is 116a, 5 lines from the top, where the Brisa says, where the Gemara says, Tanya Kavasi de Rav Yehuda. So what we're referring to is, we saw that there was a machokes, a dispute between Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna, and also there's a dispute between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Huna. There's also a dispute between Abaye and Rava, and the Gemara tried to connect the machokes. That the dispute is if a person takes as a security a rechaim and a rachav. Rav Huna says he's in violation of 3 prohibitions: rechaim, rachav, and also the general prohibition of kinefet shul chovel. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says no, that you're not going to be getting malchus for that general prohibition of kinefesh uchovel in this circumstance, because it's a lav shebekos. It's just a general prohibition, doesn't add anything, and therefore you don't get it. It's coming to teach us about other items, not about the rachaim and the rechav. So the Gemara said, let's bring a brisa, actually 2 brisos, and from the combination of the 2 brisos, we could see a position in support of Rav Yehuda. So what's the combination of 2 brises? The first brisa is Tanya Kavasi de Rav Yehuda. We have a brisa that supports Rav Yehuda. Chaval zug shel saparim. Let's say you take as security a pair of scissors, like 2 items that you combine them together to do their job. Some say, well, this is not nefesh. This is not ochel nefesh. So some have the text that this is not scissors, but like stuff to cut the vegetables in the field. So chavel zug shel saparim v'tzemet shel paros, or the tools to do a yoke on the cow. Chayiv shtayim. You're going to get 2 sets of lashes, because it's 2 tools that you combine to do one job. So it's 2 sets of lashes. Zeh ba'atzmo v'zeh ba'atzmo eino chayiv ela achas. Then if we get each one by itself, then you're only going to get 1 set of lashes. We get one by itself. If you only take one of them, you don't take both, you're only going to get 1 set of lashes. So because you only took 1 item. So Vitanya idoch, and let's look at Rashi there. Chayiv shtayim. Why are you getting 2 sets of lashes? Because mishum ki nefesh al kol echad. For each one, you're in violation. And even though you need both of them to do one work, you're still going to be in violation. But now, let's say, V'tanya idach, we have the second brisa that we're referring to. That the second brisa says, Chaval zug shel saparim v'tzemet shel paros. Let's say you take both let's say you take a pair of scissors and a yoke for the cows. I might think under those circumstances, you're only going to be liable for 1 set of lashes. Talmud Omer. The verse says about the millstone, that on their own they're 2 utensils, but when you do them together, they're 1. And you're liable for each one. So to every utensil, which when their own individual utensils, when you combine them, you're going to get 1 set of lashes for each part of the tool. But anyway, we see from here that they compare the scissors to the law about rechaim v'rachav, and we saw in the first brisa that you're only going to get 2 lashes for them and not 3. So this is a brisa that supports Rabbi Yehuda. So now the Gemara gives some case law about this. So the person who took basically a butcher knife from his friend as a security, but then after that he was feeling wasn't sure if he did the right thing. So also coming to Abaye, he came to Abaye. He said, I took this butcher knife so as security. So Abaye says to him, Abaye says you have to return it, because it's a utensil that you do ochel nefesh with. And so since it's a utensil that you do ochel nefesh with, therefore you're not allowed to take it as a security, so you have to return it. So he says, V'sakum bedina, And then if you want to get your money, then you have to basically go to court and prove this in order to get your money. So Rashi says, "Taveu din al chovach." Go take him to court for your debt. If he admits to you, if you have edim, he has to pay. But otherwise, he just has to take a rabbinic oath. Meaning to say, the fact that you have this, the point of Abai is the fact that you have this knife in your possession proves nothing. You still have to go and make your case. Where it's not evidence of anything, right? You didn't have the right to take it, and so you have to return it at this point. Whereas Rava says, "Lo tzarcha mekem bedina Allah." You don't need Rava says once you took it as security, and there are no witnesses that you took it as security, you are able to claim that you could have claimed that you bought it, and so therefore you don't need to go to court over it, because basically you've acquired the mashkon to take an oath, and to make him take an oath, and you could take until the value of the amount that that it's worth. So therefore that's the point. Rava says since you could have claimed that you had bought it on your own, therefore you can make a claim until the value of the money it's worth, because since you have it in possession, you can make that claim. So that's what Rava's point is. So the Gemara says, but doesn't Abai agree with this logic that Rava's saying? Everybody should agree with what Abai is saying. It's basic logic. Gemara explains, no. Yes. Well, look at Rashi. Rashi says, "Kimin demashkin." Since you took it as security, and there is no witnesses to the security. The person who took it, i.e., the lender, could have claimed he could have said, "Listen, I just had purchased this." Therefore, he doesn't have to prove that he had lent the money initially. Because once you've taken the mashkon, it's acquired. You've acquired it. For him to take an oath and to take until the value. So it's the rabbinic oath that we're making him to take, but he's able to be nishba v'notel here. That's what Rashi said. But it is an unusual oath. You can see if they comment on that. But that's what Rashi says. Right. Normal place is nishba v'niftar. Yeah. Hold on. Here it says. Yep, that's what he says. So, yeah. That the defendant does? No, not here. No, Rashi says explicitly that the person taking the money is nishba v'notel. He takes the money and he takes the money from him. Okay, so now we go on. So Gemara says, but wait, why Abai Leisle High Sfar doesn't Abai agree with this logic? Why is this case different from a case of goats that ate some chushla? Rashi says chushla is barley that's peeled. Why is this different in the case of goats that ate some peeled barley in nardai? Also, mar the chushla, and the owner of the barley was upset his stuff was taken. But tafaslu, went a hold and grabbed the goats. The katayin tuva, and he says, "Give me back all the money you took from me." So the Amar Avod Shmuel Yachol Tonad Kedei Dmein. Shmuel says he doesn't have to prove how much. He doesn't have to prove everything. He could just take until the value of the barley that they ate. And Abai agree with him there. So why is it different from that case? So Gemara says, Hasam, that case is different. Why? Because why else would he have the goats in his possession unless he had bought them? Because goats are not typically things you rent out or purchase. So therefore, that fact that he has them in his possession, he could have easily claimed that he had bought them. But here in this case, the knife, but the knife is something that typically people would borrow or rent out, and so therefore, just the fact that he has it in his possession is not an indication that he bought it. The Shach Rav Huna bar Avin, So that Rav Huna bar Abba once sent, if there are things that are typically borrowed or rented out, and he says, listen, I purchased it, we're not going to believe him because it's like a rental. It's an item that's typically rented, so we don't believe it. The Gemara says, "Rabba Wesley High Svara." Does Rabba not agree with this logical position that something that's typically rented out or borrowed, we don't believe you to say that it's acquired? Because Rabba says in the case of the knife, Rabba says in the case of the knife, you can make the claim until Kadei Demayan. So Gemara says, Rava, but how could that be? Rava Afik Zuga de Sarbala, the Safra da Agadata Miasme. So, but and the reason why he did it was but Rava himself, there were orphans who had a pair of scissors and books of Agadata that they had inherited from their father, and Rava went and he took it back from them and say because they had borrowed or rented it. So therefore, we see his logic was, but he said the fact they have it, they don't have the right to say migul because those are things that are typically borrowed or rented. So, and so therefore, if their father had been believed to have claimed that, they would have also been believed to claim it. So we see he doesn't accept that. So Rava says, no, this knife that I gave back, that I said he could keep, he doesn't have to return. He can automatically make that claim. It's dynamic, even the mifkame. A knife typically easily gets injured. Then therefore, kapte inshivu mushli. People will not lend it out because the knife will get very easily ruined. They'll get nicked, and then the knife. People don't lend out their knives. They'll lend out other things, but people typically don't lend out their knives. People are very attached to their knives. Nowadays, everybody has hundreds of knives. But in those days, people had one knife. That was your knife. It was your identity. It was your knife. You have your knives. You don't. Yeah, people. But that's true, of course. But that's the point. If people have a very special knives, have attachment to their knives, like they have it's a different type of tool. Hajin Olach HaMakabel will return to you. Hajin Olach HaMakabel will return to you this beautiful chapter called HaMakabel. And so now we're up to the next chapter, which is called Abayis V'Aliyah. This is the last chapter of Bava Metzia, and this chapter deals with partners. And even though typically speaking, the chapter, the Masechta of Bava Basra, the next tractate is really going to deal with partners. Nevertheless, since there are laws of a renter, we're going to deal with it. But most of the chapter really belongs to Bava Basra. Another reason why it's here is because the division of the tractates, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, was 10 chapters each. So we need to finish it up, 10 chapters. So there are basically five major topics in this very short chapter. One is, let's say you have a house that falls down. Let's say people inherit something. Third concept is let's say he rents it out and he wants to pay. Could they pay him whatever they want? And when could a person under what circumstances can a person use the public domain? And the fifth thing is, let's say there's something that grew in a shared plot. So we say abayis v'aliyah shel shnayim. So the bayis and the aliyah, the house and they used to live in their attics. They used to live in their attics. They used to rent them out. So the top floor, not an attic, was like a top floor. So bayis aliyah shel shnayim. So the house and the top floor are two different people. Rashi says what we're talking about is that there are two brothers that they got an inheritance, and one person took the bottom floor and the other one took the top floor. And the stones of the house on the bottom, from the ceiling to the floor, they belong to the one on the bottom, and from the ceiling above belong to the top one. So that's the basic circumstance. And now fall down. So shneim cholkin. So both of them have to they both divide it. since we don't know whose stones belong to whom, we're going to divide it under those circumstances. We're going to divide according to the wood and the stones and the dirt. We're going to divide up in a house, and we do it. Rashi says according to the height of the house. Means to say, if the top house was double the size, and if the double the size of the attic, then the person on the bottom takes double the size of the person on the top. And if some of them are whole and some of them are broken, and each one wants to take the whole ones, then row in or we see which of the ones would be more likely to break. Meaning to say, we look at the house and see how it fell. If it fell from its foundation, and then it's certainly the ones that broke are the ones from the bottom. But if it fell on its side, then we're going to say the ones that broke are the ones on top, and he gets those broken ones. If one of the person recognizes some of the stones that are broken, and he knows that they're his, he proves that they're his, then he could take them, and those count towards his calculations. And meaning, say his friend takes the other ones corresponding to it. So the Gemara says, well, midiktani, from the fact that it states in the Mishnah, Rowan, from the fact that it states in the Mishnah that we see which stones are supposed to break, that means we learn from here, that means to say that we're able to tell, if it fell downward from the pressure, or if it fell onto its side, like an earthquake or something. So you could see, you're able to determine. If that's the case, why do we say we split it? We should look, see how it fell. If it fell downward, then the top ones are the ones that broke, and therefore the owner of the attic could take the ones that are far away. And if it fell by toppling over, tatia itbor, then the bottom ones are the ones that broke, and the one on the top could take the top ones. Meaning, say you could see the circumstances, clearly see how it fell. So the Gemara says, "Well, no, it must have fallen at night, and so we can't see." The Gemara says, "Well, so that's not an answer. If it fell at night, let's look at it in the morning." No, the garbage man got there earlier, and they cleaned it out. The Gemara says, "Well, let's just track them down and ask them." The people who did it, they're gone. There are people who went there in public. They cleaned it out. They can't find them. You can't find them. The Gemara says, "Still, why don't we see in whose possession they're in, where the stone's found now, and then the other person have to prove it. He should have to bring a proof to take it away from him." Gemara says, "No, no, we're talking about a case where it's sitting in both of their courtyards." Well, the Gemara says, or inami, or alternatively, they're sitting in the public domain. So it's either a shared courtyard or it's nobody's courtyard. Or alternatively, or in this circumstances, it was a place where they didn't care who was using it, meaning to say, because everybody had permission to go in there with their stones, and so therefore nobody really has the presumptive status that it's his. So now we have somebody recognized part of the stones, he could take them. Gemara says, so what does the second person claim? Either come or in, if he was claiming. Why does the Mishnah have to teach us this law? If the second person is claiming, listen, yeah, those are his stones, Pshita, obviously he could take them. We're in, and if he doesn't say he doesn't agree, why couldn't the first person take them? He has to bring a proof. So the first person says, those are my stones, and the second person says, I'm not sure if they're my stones. Oh, this is a sugya we had several times already in our tractate. Isn't this refutation of Rav Nachman, as we just had back on 97b, and we had earlier in Bava Kama 118a, isn't this exactly the sugya of Rav Nachman? And this is a refutation of Rav Nachman. It says, you owe me $100. The other one says, I don't know. Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda, Amar Chayev. They'd say that the person who says, I don't know, has to pay. Where Rav Nachman says he's potter. So here we're saying that the person who says, I don't know, loses out, but Rav Nachman said he's exempt. So it's a question on Rav Nachman. So the Gemara says, no, we'll give the same answer we gave back on 97b and give back the same answer we gave in Bava Kama 118a. Which was that Rav Nachman says could go in sheyesh asik shvua b'nei. There's a third element here, that there was an obligation to take a biblical oath because there was two claims, and he admits to part of the claim, and the other party says, I don't know. So therefore, that's the case we're talking about here. What's its case of the asik shvua? Like the Rav, I'm a Rav, he says, you owe me $100. The other guy says, I only owe you 50. And the other part, I don't know. So we told Shani Yachol Ishav Isham. Even Rav Nachman would admit in that case, if he can't take an oath, he has to pay. Okay, fine. So these stones that he takes from his friend, he takes other ones corresponding to it. So Rava thought to say that the other person who takes stones corresponding to the first part that was taken, he takes according to the calculation of the broken ones. Meaning to say, the first one takes the complete stones because he says those are his, the whole stones, and his other one says he takes corresponding to the broken ones, and the other ones they split equally. We see from here that since the second guy says I don't know, he has a worse claim, and so therefore he takes the broken ones corresponding to the complete ones. So Abaye says to Rava, just the opposite. The first one has a worse claim. Why? From the fact that he knows these stones are his and the other ones he doesn't know. Then he's clearly he doesn't have any other whole stones. Whereas all the other whole stones are going to the other person. And so therefore the first person shall lose when he claims that these stones are his. He should have kept his mouth shut according to your logic. So therefore, Abaye says we don't like that argument. Abaye says no. We're talking about a case that if the first person claimed that these basically let's say these three white stones are his, and he takes them, then another person can take three complete other stones, and the other ones they eat equally. So if that's the case, why is the person who makes this claim benefiting at all? So he says, okay, those are yours. I'll just take corresponding to that. No, the Gemara says the bricks. It'll happen. Let's say the bricks are some bricks are a little bit wider than the others. Some bricks are a little bit better, and so therefore, because he can prove that those are his, he gets to take them. Or Inami Tina, or since he claims they're his, or Inami Tina Demiyavda, or let's say it's a little bit of a better quality. So therefore, since he claims there is, and the other one says, I don't know, he gets these bricks, even though the other person is still going to get three other bricks the same, but he's going to get these are slightly better quality. Okay, the next Mishnah. Bias v'aliyah. Let's say you have the house, and the aliyah is the upper chamber of the house. Nifchata haliyah. Let's say so, but this is a different scenario than the first Mishnah. The first Mishnah, they both were equal partners, or they were both partners in it. But in this case, we're talking about one person owns both, and he lives in the house, and he rents out the top part to his friend. Nifchata, and now the top part, there was a break in the floor of the upper chamber. Nifchata aliyah. And so therefore they can't live there. So then the landlord has to fix it. So this guy went to landlord school. He says, I don't want to fix it. All right, the person who lives on the top can go and live below. The person who lives on top can go and live below. So that's basically the law. We're going to see, can he live with the first guy living there? Can he move his whole family in? Can he have his cousins over for Shabbos? The Gemara is going to discuss that. Rav Yossi says, Hatachto nosin as a tikra, Elyon nosin as a maziva. The top guy gives the floor, the bottom guy gives the floor, and the top guy has to do the plaster. So you can see how chaos is going to ensue here. Nifchata b'kama. So how much does the 4 have to break to allow him to move down? Rav says beruba, Shmuel says ba'arba. Rav says the majority of 4 breaks, otherwise you can't go down below. Otherwise, until once the majority breaks, then he could go and live down below. Shmuel says ba'arba, that 4 tefachim have to break. Rav says beruba, ava ba'arba lo. Rav says the only majority. But if it's just 4, and meaning to say, if it's just anything less than majority, 4 or more, until the majority, you can't go down, because all he's missing there is the place to put, let's say, his table or his dresser, and so therefore he doesn't have to give him the whole 4 below. He could just give him a certain amount of space below, and he doesn't have any claim. It says, "Oh, you're missing a space for a dresser. Just go down below and use this space in my downstairs thing," because, well, they're not talking about that. That's a different question. So as he states, Adam dar the fact you have a slight inconvenience, you have to go outside your house to get your refrigerator because your refrigerator is below, that's not a big deal. Shmuel says arba. No, Shmuel says even if it's just 4 and he has to go downstairs to use the refrigerator, because a person, it's a hazard. Not a hazard, it's a annoyance to move half up and half down. Shmuel says we don't have to deal with that. So Shmuel says, what are we talking about? So what's the scenario? Let's look at the contract. What does the contract say? If we say the landlord says, I'm renting out this to you, this aliyah, I'm renting out to you this attic, then Azda, the attic is gone. And so therefore, the tenant shouldn't have to give him another place to live. He says, I'm going to rent out this specific thing, and he doesn't have to give him anything else. So if the thing gets ruined, that's that guy's bad luck. It's the tenant's bad luck. You're out of luck here. Zero liability. That's basically what it says. Ella Amrway, he said to him, Aliyah Stam, I'm renting out to you an attic. Well, if that's the case, well, then he should have to rent him a different attic. So Amarava, Lotzricha, the Amrway, Aliyah Zusha, Naskircha, Kisalka, Salt Bade, V'chinochis, Chus Bahada. So he says, no, the language he said was, this attic that I'm renting to you, when it's in existence, you could live there, but when it falls down, then come down and live underneath it in the house. So that's what he said. Well, the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, well, then it's so obvious. That's what the contract says. So Ravashi says, the Amrway Aliyah Zu shall gabe bayis ze ani maskelecha. So no, what he said was the following. The landlord said to the tenant, this upper chamber that's on top of this house, I'm renting to you. So he basically says that the house is meshubed to the attic. The house is basically beholden to the attic. And so therefore, if the attic breaks, you could go down below. So it's like the case of where Ravin said, by the way, so what's the difference there? Why is that more ambiguous? That seems to also be precise. That also seems to be precise. Okay. I'm not sure, like, why is that a bigger chiddush? But anyway, maybe we'll see from the case law. The case where a person said to his friend, Dois shall gabe parsak ze ani mocher lecha, this vine that's hanging on top of this peach tree, I'm selling to you. The nekar parsak, and then the peach tree was cut down, and the purchaser claims that the seller should also plant another peach tree because he had sold him a grapevine on top of a peach tree. You have to put a peach tree underneath the vine as long as the vine is there. And so therefore, Dalash al-Gabi Parsuk say implies that the peach tree is meshubed to the vine. And so too, here in this case, the attic that's on top of this house means to say that the house is meshubed to it, and he has to have the right, he has the right to go into the house. There are some, I'm surprised you didn't point this out yet, Jeff. The two cases are not exactly the same. The Nimuka Yosef points that out. Because, what? Oh, they do point out, what do they say in the footnote?
The second case is promising to have a tree to hold up the vine, and that if the tree goes up or fall down or goes away, you're obligated to put up another tree to support the vine, because you promised to support the vine. In the first case, there's never going to be a situation in which the local apartment collapses, and then you replace it in order to support the upper apartment. Because if it collapses, the upper apartment's gone and it's destroyed. So you're not equivalent in that sense. But the idea is that by mentioning it, you're obligating yourself to see.
Okay, it's a little bit different here, but close enough. A little bit different here, but close enough. Okay, so we say Kaddish. I'm not a Kaddish. We say Shkoyach. No Kaddishes today, please. God willing. All right, we'll stop the recording. We could. We just don't have a minion here. Yeah. Shkoyach.